Hi, I'm Cindy Wilson, and this is Home Sweet Home Crafty Creations. In today's video, I'm going to recreate a piece that I had found on the Wayfair site that I really liked, but I really didn't like the $250 price tag on it. Spoiler alert, it did not turn out as planned, but it really did turn out pretty cool in the end. So if you want to see my attempt at forgery, grab a coffee, get comfortable. I'll do the forgery now, you can do it later. For the project, I used a $4 18 by 24 canvas from Dollarama, some matte finish Mod Podge, some Rust-Oleum linen white chalk paint, white tissue paper, and regular copy paper, and also you will need a laser printer. The piece that I found on Wayfair was this 20 by 20 canvas with a fleur-de-lis on it, with some French script on it, and made to look like it was part of a postcard. Well, the 20 by 20 piece was $236.99, and the 24 by 24 was $250. That I thought was just a little bit ridiculous, so this is where it started, that I decided I was going to make my own. I went online, I Googled several things. First, I wanted French script printable. Then I wanted a fleur-de-lis printable. And then I had to find the French form of postcard. Now here I'm going to slaughter this, just watch this. It's called carte postale. Supposed to say it faster than that, but that's how it's pronounced. And if that pronunciation is wrong, it's Google's fault. They told me to say it that way. Anyway, what you'll need, or what I needed, and what I used was a program that I have on my computer called CorelDRAW. If you're going to create something like this, and you need something that is going to be big enough, you will have to do it in an art program, whatever you have on your computer. Everybody has something different, I'm sure. There's Procreate and there's Corel. There's so many of them out there. I prefer Corel. I've used it probably for about 15 years now. Absolutely love the program. And what I did was created a canvas that was 19 by 25, just slightly bigger than my actual canvas of 18 by 24 that I was going to create. Brought it into the program, stretched it out to the proper size, and then went over onto the layout screen. And there, I told it to print it in tile form. That's the only way that you can get this to print properly. Otherwise, it will just print it on a regular sheet of paper, and that doesn't work. What it does is when you print in tile form, it will give it to you, whether it's 6 tiles, 8 tiles, 9 tiles, whatever you need to fill that image out. It will print it for you by tile. My settings also were for text. I did not use picture or portrait or any of those other settings. It was just plain text. Applied it and hit print. For it to print, it had to be on the tissue paper, which I was going to decoupage onto the canvas. So you'll see here what I did originally was print out the pattern first. Just plain old copy paper, just to make sure that it looked proper, that it came out proper, and that it would fit on my canvas. Then I just flipped those sheets of paper over, attached my tissue paper to it with the glue stick, because we're going to print all of these images, all these 9 tiles of images on tissue paper, and then decoupage it onto the canvas. Once everything was printed, I grabbed a pair of scissors and I trimmed off all the excess paper around the printed images. It was going to overlap anyway because of the tiling effect, but I kept it as much of or to a minimal as possible, so there wasn't much bulky residue on the canvas, I guess, is the way I want to put it. And unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. You'll see at the end, and I'm not quite sure why it didn't work out. The only thing I could think of is that maybe I should not have printed the canvas. I think by printing the canvas, I blocked up the weave and the natural airflow between the tissue paper and the canvas, and since there was no airflow, I ended up with air bubbles, which in the past when I've had air bubbles with decoupage, they have lied down as the drying effect took, or as the drying happened. But this time, for whatever reason, it did not. Initially, I painted the canvas. It was called Oatmeal, I believe, the color. But once I printed out everything on the tissue paper, put it across, I realized that there was going to be a problem. The color was not going to bleed through enough of the tissue paper to make it look proper. So, change in plan. I ended up painting the canvas white and applying the tissue paper to a white background with the hope that that would solve the problem. And to a certain extent, it did. But like I said, you'll see at the very end here, for whatever reason, it bubbled. It didn't lie flat when it dried like it usually does with whenever I've decoupaged before. For whatever reason, whether it was the surface not, I really don't know. Like it should have gone flat. Every other time I've ever done decoupage, it has always laid flat for me. This is the only time it has not done it. If you have any ideas as to why it did this or why it didn't do what it was supposed to do, let me know in the comments. I'd really like to know because I'd love to try something like this again. But because of the effect it had at the very end and not lying flat, like it's a cool effect, don't get me wrong. I'm not totally disappointed with it, but I just wish it had been flatter. Once I had the first layer of decoupage down on the canvas, I trimmed off the excess with a pair of scissors and then just finished off the edges that way. Once the edges dried, the usual manner that I use is a piece of emery board or sandpaper to kind of take off the excess around the bottom. I did the same thing with the canvas, no issues there whatsoever. Once the text was dry, I went and I had found a fleur-de-lis image that I liked on, I believe it was, I saw so many of them. I think this came from Pinterest, if I'm not mistaken. Not 100% sure, don't quote me on that. But if you Google it, free images, printable, royalty-free, you will find something I'm sure that works for you. This one worked for me. Same process, printed out on the tissue paper in the tile format, to make sure that the whole image would be big enough to cover the area that I did want to cover on the canvas. And then again, decoupaged over top of it and let that dry. Just be sure that if you do something similar to this, to trim off as much of the paper that you have not printed on as possible. That gives you a cleaner, nicer looking image and kind of helps that little bit of edging disappear into the background a little bit better. Once my fleur-de-lis emblem was dry, I decided I did not like the carte postale in the size that it was in. Man, I'm so impressed with myself with my French pronunciations. And I didn't like the size of it anyway, and so I just painted over, I sanded it first, lightly sanded it down, painted it over with white paint, printed out a second carte postale, cut it out, and made it just a little bit bigger than the original one, and put that at the very top of the image. Once my carte postale was dry and completely cured, I think I let it sit overnight. I took the matte finish Mod Podge and recovered the whole canvas from top to bottom one more time. Well, I'm telling you, I love the idea. I love the concept. I'm not crazy about the over-excessive waviness of the tissue paper on the canvas. Like I say, I'm not sure why it did it, if I was the cause of it or what happened there. But as it is, I do like it, and it's definitely hanging in my dining room, and it's definitely staying there. Hope you like it too. And speaking of liking things, if you enjoyed today's video, please consider liking, sharing, subscribing, and definitely coming back to visit next time. Bye for now.